Okay, this is test 3, corrective C. However, no matter what corrective you're using, you can use this for help. So if you have a different corrective, that's okay. The problems will be different, but the ideas are the same. So in number 1, we have to solve for H, okay? I ask you to highlight what you have to solve for. I think that's a good idea, but whatever you want to do. Now, here is what you need to understand about solving. Why is that sitting there? Okay. Here's what you need to understand about solving for a letter. I'm solving for this H right here. Is there a plus or minus sign on the same side as what I have to isolate? And of course, the answer is no. There's nothing being added or subtracted. So I'm not going to move anything by doing the opposite, by adding or subtracting. How I have to move things now is either multiplication or division. Because I have a fraction, I have to use multiplication first. Okay? So I take the bottom number of the fraction and I multiply both sides by the bottom number. These 2's cancel. Now, one thing I'm seeing is this 2 over here to the A is 2A. I'm seeing you guys in the test leaving that off. Okay? Equals 1BH and BH are the same thing. All right? So now, I'm still trying to isolate the H. There's no plus or minus sign, so how do I get rid of the B? It's multiplication. I have to divide both sides by B. B's cancel. My answer is 2A over B equals H. Okay? Number 2 is just like number 1, except for one thing. I have to isolate the C. Do I see a plus or minus sign on the same side as my C? The answer is yes. That means I have to ship the 32. See, up in number 1, I didn't ship anything. I separated. Here I have to ship. It's a positive 32, so when I move it to the other side, it becomes negative 32. Okay? Now, it's exactly the same as what I just did in number 1. I have a fraction. Once I get rid of the loner, I multiply both sides by the bottom number of my fraction. And I multiply everything. So everything on the left has to be multiplied by 5, and everything on the right. This is a quantity because it is a subtraction problem. This is a multiplication problem, so it's not the same. These cancel, leaving me 5 times the quantity of F minus 32 equals 9C. Now, I have to say one thing. When I took this math class that you're taking right now, I was right down the hall in Miss Davies' class. Miss Davies didn't like her. You know why I didn't like her? Because she made us learn quantities. What a negative sign in front. And we had to write it out by hand. But you know what? Now, I'm thankful. Because I understand what a quantity is. That's what you guys need to learn. Okay, enough ranting and raving about that. How do I get rid of the 9 from the C? There's not a plus or minus sign. So now I'm going to divide both sides by 9. And I'm going to divide, because these are formulas, I'm going to divide everything by 9 and leave it. This cancels. My answer is 5 times the quantity of F minus 32 over 9 equals C. Okay? I'm not going to distribute the 5. That's more math work I don't want to do. Let's look at number 5. I have to isolate the L. Do I see a plus or minus sign?
Yes.
Yes. So that means this plus 2W has to be shipped. So it's going to show up on the other side. So I'm going to have P minus 2W equals. Now, can I look at this 2L and know what to do? What do I have to do?
Divide.
I have to divide by 2. So I'm just going to put divide by 2 and my L. Because that's how I separate the 2 from the L. I have to divide. You guys are getting these steps confused. You're putting minus 2W on bottom and plus 2 on top. Please keep it straight. All right, let's look at competency 2. Competency 2, same thing, same concept. I have to solve for y. So I have to isolate this y right here, okay? So now, do I see any plus or minus signs with my y? I do, which means this 9x needs to be shipped and this -1 needs to be shipped. Please put your number with your letter first. When my 9x moves to the other side, what does it become? Negative 9x. Uh-oh. It's the bat phone. Okay, so I moved my positive 9x to negative 9x. My -1 to +1, and I'm left with 7y. Now, because I'm teaching you to solve for slope-intercept form, I want you to divide everything by 7. And then I want you to simplify. Over here, I don't want you to do this, but here I do. So I end up with y equals -9 over 7x plus 1 over 7. We're going to do number 10. I mean, they're all the same. I want to do one. I want to do one where I solve for x. I guess we're going to do number 7. Okay, now I'm solving for x. Line at the equal sign. I have a plus 2y. There's a plus sign on the same side as my letter I'm isolating. So that means there's a plus and a number, so that means I have to move it to the other side. So now it becomes -2y. It stays plus 13, and my -15x is right here. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, I have to isolate this x right here, and there's a negative sign there. No, 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 no. This just means the 15's negative. It doesn't mean to combine it with something else. This plus sign says I want to combine my -15x's with my 2y's, which you can't do because they're not the same letter. So now we just go ahead and divide by -15 everything. This cancels. X equals negative over a negative is a positive. If you put -2 over -15y, that's wrong. Positive over a negative is a negative. So it is -13 over 15. You see now why you can't do the double signs? If you tell me plus 13 over -15, that's wrong. Because when we go to graph this, it's going to cause you problems. All right, well, that's about it for number competency 2. You guys usually do pretty good on competency 2. They do okay on competency 2, first hour? No. Okay, so now we're on competency 3, inequalities. Line at the inequality. Again, I have to isolate the m. I have to get the m by itself. There is something being added to the m. It's a plus 2, so I have to ship it. So that means I subtract 2 to both sides. This cancels, leaving me 7m is greater than 7. I did not multiply or divide by a negative, so I keep my inequality facing the same way. Now, I divide both sides by 7. My 7's cancel, leaving me m is greater than, because I didn't divide by a negative, 7 over 7 is 1. That's your answer. The only time you flip is when you multiply or divide by a negative. Okay, let's look at number 13. I have to distribute 2 times a is 2a, 2 times 4 is positive 8, is greater than 20. Now, ship the 8 by subtracting. 2a is greater than 12. Divide both sides by 2. A is greater than 6. I did not multiply or divide by a negative, so I did not flip my inequality. Number 14. If you need to, you can rewind to go back and see that. Now, I have numbers and letters on both sides. So when you have that, I have told you that you need to move the smallest number with a letter. If I had numbers and letters here and just numbers over here, I wouldn't do that. But because I have numbers and letters on both sides, I do this. My object is to get numbers with letters on one side, numbers without letters on the other. The smallest is negative 2x, so I'm going to add 2x to both sides. 3 is greater than 3x plus 7. Now I subtract 7. Negative 4, I'm sorry, I said greater than, I mean less than, is less than 3x. So I have negative 4 is less than 3x. Now I divide both sides by 3. Negative 4 over 3 is less than x. I did not divide by a negative, so I don't flip my inequality.
Now,
okay, let's look at number 15. Now, I have to isolate this c right there, don't I? Okay, so is there a plus or minus sign with a number after it that's trying to be added to my c?
yes.
Yes, that is a loaner. I have to ship it. So I have to subtract 3 first. Before you take care of your fractions, you must get rid of your loaners. Must get rid of your loaners. Now, I take the negative sign, I put it with the 4, and I multiply both sides by negative 4. I multiplied by a negative, didn't I? So I have to now flip my inequality. C is greater than 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. Okay, if you need to see that one again, you can rewind it. Okay, here we go, number 16. Have to distribute. Seven times b is 7b. 7 times 2 is plus 14. Is greater than or equal to negative 7b minus 21. Okay, so now I have numbers and letters on both sides. I have to get the b's. On one side of my inequality. The same side. So if I move the positive 7b, I'm going to end up with negative 14b, and then I'm going to have to flip my inequality. However, if I add 7b to both sides, I end up with 14b over here plus 14 is greater than or equal to negative 21. That's a b. This cancels. Now I subtract 14. Why won't you subtract 14? There you go. 14b is greater than or equal to negative 35. Now I divide by 14. B is greater than or equal to negative 5 over 2, because 5 goes into both those, 7 goes into both those numbers evenly. I do not, because I divided by a positive. I did not divide by a negative, so I do not flip my inequality. Okay? Okay, now we're going to move on to competency 4. I'm just going to do 2 problems on competency 4. And please pay attention. You have to solve each each absolute value twice. How many times do you have to solve it?
Twice.
Each one twice. You can't just solve it once and tell me, oh, it's positive and negative. Sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. Here's the key. Is there any numbers outside of my absolute value, on the same side as my absolute value?
No.
So my absolute value is alone, isn't it?
Yes.
If it's alone, I immediately bring what's in out and set it equal to the positive answer, and I do another equation and set it equal to the negative answer. You guys are like, I don't want to do that. I'll just solve it once. No, solve it twice. So now I subtract 5. 5's cancel. X equals 2. X equals, what's that, negative 12? Yep. Those are my two answers right there. So I can't just go 2 and negative 2. Number 18 is the same way. There's nothing outside, so it's just 4x minus 8 equals 12. 4x minus 8 equals negative 12. You will not have the same answer, positive and negative, for that one either. We're going to skip down to number 21. It's the same thing. We're going to skip to number 20. Is there anything outside of my absolute value that's on the same side as my absolute value?
Yes.
Yes, it is the positive 10. So the first thing I have to do is subtract 10 to both sides. The absolute value of 5x equals 5. Now is my absolute value alone.
Yes.
Now that it's alone, I can take it out and go 5x equals 5, and 5x equals negative 5. How do I solve this? I divide both sides by 5. 5's cancel. X equals 1. X equals negative 1, because these 5's cancel too. That's your answer there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, that's how you do competency, or Unit 3. If you have any questions, feel free to come in and ask. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Bye.